Hello, you beautiful human. This is the 187 Podcast, and I'm 187. The 187 Podcast is a podcast for men, those who identify as men, and those that care for them. I'm producing this podcast to normalise the conversation around many of the topics that have an impact on men. If you're finding the episodes helpful, then feel free to support me by sharing the podcast, talking about the subject, or even getting in contact with me and letting me know what subjects I should cover. But also, if you have a lived experience that you think is important to talk about, or something you'd like to share, all of my contact details are in the show notes. Welcome to another episode of the 187 Podcast. So today we do have a guest, but I think when I talk about a particular subject, I'd like to hand over information that I gathered over time and make them available on the show notes for you to download and do some further reading if you need some homework to do. So today I'm going to pose a statement here. As a parent, you'll never want to have to bury your child. So now imagine you have to, knowing that your child has been snatched from you and your family by someone who has decided after months or even years of coercion and control and violence to then murder them. What would you do? As a parent, one of the things we are charged with is to protect our children. And murder alters everything for everyone. Murder is an event that ends the life for someone we love, a life we hope to see flourish and to be a beacon of our love and something good that we could leave in the world when we're gone. So what would you do? Now, according to studies conducted by Women's Aid in 2017, on average, women experience 35 incidents of domestic abuse before reporting it to the police. Mankind did a study in the same year where male victims of domestic abuse experienced on average 24 incidents of abuse before reporting it to the police. The report also found that men are less likely to report domestic abuse due to fear of not being believed, fear of repercussions, and embarrassment. This, coupled with other considerations like how they're viewed as a man, false accusations that come about that may have an impact on their employment and how they live, their friend, family, and their social networks. And in some relationships, coercion and controlling behaviour is often seen as accepted normal behaviour. In the same year, the Susie Lample Trust found that men experiencing stalking will experience on average 11 incidents before reporting it to the police. And the study also found that men were less likely to perceive stalking behaviours as threatening or criminal, which is probably the reason why there's underreporting. But all these studies I've mentioned indicate a need for improved support and education around domestic abuse, and that includes counting male victims. But we must not lose sight of those connected to the victims murdered by perpetrators. The loss of a child can be devastating to parents and families. For me, there are four main areas that come to mind. Relationship breakdown is one. The loss of a child in such traumatic circumstances can often put immense strain on relationships. Grief, blame can lead to relationship breakdowns, separation and divorce. Mental illness. Parents and families can experience a range of mental health challenges, and this may include depression, anxiety, PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, and prolonged grief disorder. These conditions can significantly affect their daily lives and the ability to cope with loss. And substance misuse, which is the third. Some parents and family members may turn to substance misuse as a way to cope with their grief, pain, and emotional distress, Alcohol and drug abuse can further exacerbate mental health issues, impeding healing and lead to additional problems in the family. And 4, violent offences against the perpetrator. Now, in some cases, families may feel compelled to seek the revenge or confront the individual responsible for their loved one's death. This can lead to acts of violence and vigilantism. I don't have any specific statistics based on those impacts within the UK. This is just my thoughts and the kind of experience of working with families, but these are the things that come about, with parents blaming themselves for either not protecting or not doing the right thing or raising them in the right way. But then we go back to the question, what would you do if you were that parent of the loved one? Holly Gazzard was born on January the 3rd, 1994 in Gloucester, England. She grew up in a close-knit family and was the youngest of 3 children. Now, from a young age, Holly was interested in hairdressing and was determined to pursue that as a career. After leaving school, Holly attended college and studied hairdressing, and she began working in a local hairdressing salon, and she quickly established herself as a talented and popular stylist. Holly was also described as kind, generous, compassionate, and well liked by everyone who knew her. Her family and friends remember her as someone who was always smiling and had a positive outlook in life. And in addition to her hairdressing work, Holly was passionate about helping others and was involved in various charitable causes. She volunteered with her local football club. Holly had been in a relationship for 3 years before she ended it in early 2013 due to her ex-partner's controlling and aggressive behaviour. Asha Maslin had a history of violence and had been previously convicted of assaulting a girlfriend. And after the breakup, Holly began another relationship, and he became increasingly jealous and possessive. On the morning of February the 18th, 2014, Asha Maslin walked into the salon where Holly worked and without a word attacked her with a knife in front of her colleagues and customers. He stabbed Holly Gazzard over 14 times, and she died from her injuries. The murderer fled the scene and went on a run for 3 days before turning himself into the police. And he was charged with murder and went on trial at Bristol Crown Court in October 2014. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, claiming he had suffered from a depressive disorder and paranoid delusions at the time of the murder. However, the jury rejected his plea and found him guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a maximum term of 24 years. It was revealed that Holly had reported Maslin to the police several times for harassment, but they failed to take any action against him. And some people felt that the police had not taken her complaint seriously enough and had not done enough to protect her from the escalating danger posed by him. So again, if you were the parent or family member in this position, what would you do? Holly's murder had a profound impact on her family and friends, and they set up the Holly Gazzard Trust in her memory. The Trust aims to raise awareness of domestic abuse and support victims and their families. Holly's story was also featured in a documentary, Holly Gazzard, Final Warning, and a book titled Broken by Violence, United by Hope, written by her father, Nick Gazzard. And for this reason, I'm deeply honoured to speak to the author of that book, Holly's dad, Nick Gazzard.
Hello, my name is Nick Gazzard. I'm the Chief Executive and the founder of the Holly Gazzard Trust. The Trust is a charity that I set up back in 2014 following the murder of my daughter, Holly. Holly was only 20 years old. She'd been through a period of domestic abuse and stalking in the last 12 months of her life, and she was in a relationship which was unhealthy, and she tried to get out of that relationship on a number of occasions, and she finally did. But within 3 days, her ex-partner walked into the salon where she was a hairdresser and she was working, and he stabbed her to death. As you can imagine, that's an absolute incredible moment in someone's life when you're told that your daughter has been murdered or killed at that stage, obviously, because we hadn't had the court hearing. So, it's such a traumatic event that you go through. And the only way I can really describe it to people is that it turns your world upside down, back to front, and inside out. You don't know where you are or what you're doing for a period of time because it's such a shock. I've got Holly's sister and her mum, and I, as a had to stay strong for myself, but also for them, because we were an ordinary family, nothing special. I had a career in financial services. Holly had a career in hairdressing. Her older sister was a mum, and we were happy-go-lucky. And suddenly, this express train hits you, and you have to react, and you have to do something. And my reaction at that time was, okay, this has happened now. I need to try and focus on where we are. And after a period of 2 to 3 weeks, when it started to sink in, really, I thought about, Holly was such a vivacious socialite, massive circle of friends. Everyone seemed to love her, always smiling. I didn't really just want to let that go because I thought that she was too good for that. So I thought, well, how can I try and turn what's happened to Holly, into something positive? How can I prevent the Hollies of the future happening? How can I prevent parents going through what we go through and Holly's sister? And I thought about starting a charity. And at that stage, I didn't really know what the charity would be. The only focus I had was that I wanted to prevent these things happening in the future, and perhaps I can fill in some of the gaps of some of the services that are out there. Before Holly was killed, I didn't have a clue of what domestic abuse was. I didn't have a clue what stalking was. I've never come across it before, so it was a real shock. So after that 3 or 4 weeks, I did some research around these areas, talked to a number of people, and then I started to set up the charity. And within a couple of months, we created the Holly Gazzard Trust.
Okay, and that's great because you've shown sort of an arc of how from that tragic event and where you got to, you're setting up the trust. What I'd like to ask about, if you don't mind, is that you talked about obviously when the feeling of having to remain strong for your partner and your daughter, and I suppose those other people around are also affected by it. I can't imagine the enormity of this event that would happen on you or on your family, but also when you say you're to remain strong. How did you do that? I mean, what were the things that you didn't do that you felt you wanted to do? What are the things you felt you had to do for others?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That ripple effect of people that a domestic homicide like Holly's affects is not just the immediate family, but it's the extended family, it's the friends, it's the colleagues, it's the community. There's that ripple effect out. And at that stage, I was probably running on fumes. But my thought process was, I've got to try and do something. I'm quite a level-headed person. I'm quite a reflector, so I often sit back and reflect on things and then act. And that's what I tried to do. I'm quite a positive person. I'm a half glass full rather than a half glass empty. I tried to see the positives in things. And at that stage, I really just wanted to come out fighting, because I'm not someone that lays down. And for me, coming out fighting means supporting the people that are around me, and doing something good. And luckily enough, I was with an employer that gave me an enormous amount of support at that stage. And I had other people around me that I could find a shoulder to lean on. So there were lots of people around who I would consult, I would talk to, that gave me that strength. And I must admit, although there were a lot of issues with the police in the handling of Holly's case, the two support officers that we had were absolutely fantastic. They gave me that strength to battle through, and the advice and the guidance. The domestic homicide case worker from victim support also gave me that spur and that shoulder and that crutch. And so I had, luckily enough, I had quite a number of people around me who I can actually lean on for that support, which helped me drive forward and keep putting one foot in front of the other over a period of time. And I gradually got stronger and stronger, and was able to see what I really wanted to come out of Holly's tragic death.
Yeah, and it's amazing that, I mean, what you're shouting loud and clear is the fact that you're the sort of human being that says, no, I can't take this lying down. But you've got that support network that, like you say, shoulders, people to lean on and people to give you the information, and that support is incredibly important. And I think it speaks volumes that going through anything as big or as big as this, or even on a smaller scale, that we speak out about how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and take that support, because we would definitely need it. Even if no matter how strong we are, we definitely would need it.
Absolutely. I've always been a firm believer of that. You work with and use the people around you for support, and you talk to people. You don't hold back, show your emotions, wear your heart on your sleeve, and I'm always one of those people that, just wants to do good things. But actually, I need people around me to be able to do that. And I think when you work with people around you, I think it's that safety in numbers, but it's also that strength in numbers as well. And it gives you that strength to move forward. And over a period of time, that gave me the strength to be able to forge the path that I wanted to forge, and allowed me to think about the things that I needed to put in place, both for my family, but also for Holly going forward, in terms of celebrating her life and her legacy, and creating the trust as a legacy for Holly.
Yeah, and I must say it's amazing, because obviously the foundation that you set up. Can you tell me a bit more about that as well?
Yeah, the Holly Gazzard Trust, which I set up. When I first set it up, I only wanted to help a couple of people. I thought, if I can help one or two people, that'd be great. Never did I think in a month of Sundays it would have grown as important, as impactful as it is today. And basically, I wanted to try and close some of those gaps in the services that I quickly learned were there. And the trust has three aims. The first one is to raise awareness of domestic abuse, stalking, knife crime, and sexual harassment, all the issues that Holly faced. Because I think if you can bring it above the table, if I can talk about it and raise that awareness, then hopefully that will give other people the encouragement to come out and face it as well and talk about it. Because we all know too well that, particularly domestic abuse, it happens behind closed doors, under the table. People can't talk about it because they don't think the support's out there, or it's too raw, or the perpetrators are too controlling. But if we can bring that out, we can bring it above the table, and we can start to talk about these issues. That to me is quite healthy, and that's one thing that we can do. So we send out a lot of information across our social media platforms, information, guidance, direction, about what these issues are and how you can talk about them and the support that you can get. And we do that through our website and through our Holly Gazette as well. So that's the first aim, is to raise that awareness of the issues that Holly faced. The second part of the trust is around providing education. Because when I look back at Holly, particularly in the last 12 months of her life, when she was in that relationship which was unhealthy, I didn't notice some of the subtle things that were happening to Holly, and I don't think she did either. We all know perpetrators can be quite manipulative. They can be quite canny in what they do, not to show it to the general public. So we didn't pick up on a number of the issues that Holly was facing. But what I've learnt in the last 9 years is that if I look back now, I can see all sorts of things that were happening to Holly and would put me on notice. And had I had that knowledge then, I would definitely have taken different action. I may have even saved her life. That's how important that knowledge is. So for me, it's about educating people about these issues, about behaviours, about what to look out for and what you can do. So it's for victims of domestic abuse and stalking. We also work with parents as well to try and get them to understand what's maybe happening to their young people. Perhaps some of the indicators that they can pick up on that might tell them that something's not quite right, and then where to go to get the right kind of guidance. We do a lot of work in schools, in universities, but also in businesses and other community groups. So it's about getting that knowledge out there so that people can understand what's happening. And then if they are victims themselves and they can understand they are a victim, then they know where to get that support. So that's the second aim of the charity. The third aim, the final aim, is to help prevent these things happening. And this is where our personal safety app, Hollyguard, comes in. And if we talk about Hollyguard, there's it's a fantastic app, and we know that it's saved a hell of a lot of lives so far from the feedback that we've had.
Yeah, and that's in regards to a suite of things for to build a foundation on. I mean that's perfect. Like you say, filling in the gaps of the awareness for people to not only know about the telltale signs themselves, but also to speak out, but also for what we tend to do, and I know within my own work, is that those people who are close to that person don't notice until later on when they're more educated. And you're right in saying that sometimes the individual doesn't realize, because it's almost like for some people it can be like being a lobster in hot water. You don't know until it's too hot and then it's too late, kind of thing. So your creation of you're working towards literally saving lives before it becomes fatal. And I think to be able to have the energy to be able to do that is very admirable. I think that's the right word. And that and I think you deserve as much support as possible. And that's one of the reasons why I thought that we would talk to you today. What I'd like you to do, though, is if you could tell me a little bit about the app and why it's become almost like within domestic abuse anyway, in both men's services and women's services, it's almost like the British standard. This is what you have to have. So.
Yes, Hollyguard is a. I'll start from the beginning on Hollyguard, because that is important that people understand what it can do. Hollyguard is a personal safety app that you can download to any smartphone, whether that's Android or Apple. Very simple. Go to the relevant app store, search for Hollyguard and download it. It takes a couple of minutes, and it's free to download and it's free to use. It's a very smart bit of kit. It works on your own device, so you don't have to carry another device with you. There's lots of functionality in Hollyguard. For example, there's the alert function, which means that you can send an alert to a person who you set up as your emergency contact. Let's say a parent. And if you're in trouble, all you do is shake your phone and it will send the alert. And not only does it send an alert, but it allows that individual to look and hear and see exactly what's happening to you, because it records voice and audio. And then that's sent to your account, which you create in the cloud when you set up HollyGuard. So all the information is retained. There's a journey function which you can put in the start and the end of the journey via postcode. You can set a timescale by which you want to get to the end of that journey. And once you click save, again, it sends that to your emergency contact. They can click on the link and they can see where you are along that journey. So if it's a journey to get home, they can see where you are and how far you are away from home. And if you don't get to your destination by the timescale that you've set, again, it will automatically send the alert to your emergency contact. You don't have to do anything. There's a meetings function which you can set a timer. So if you're going, let's say if you're, an example might be if you're a nurse, a community nurse, you're going to see someone you're not quite sure of, and in an area you're not sure of, you can set a countdown timer so that if you don't get out of that meeting or that appointment by a set time, again, it will automatically send the alerts to your prescribed emergency contacts. There's a report function, which allows you to report things which are happening to you. It doesn't go anywhere else, doesn't go to the police. Basically allows you to make reports of issues that you are facing. For example, if you're someone who's suffering from domestic abuse, you can make a log of all the instances of domestic abuse that's happened to you each time. That will go to your account in the cloud and it will stay there forever. So if you report it to the police can come to us under data protection and we can send all that information to them without you having to be re-traumatized by having to bring it all back up again. We can send all the data and that can help them in their prosecutions and sending that onto the CPS. We've worked with the CPS to ensure that the data we hold, we encrypt, and then we send to the police is in a format which actually can be used in the court of law. So that's really important for us because hopefully HollyGuard will start helping police and the CPS to increase and improve those conviction rates for the various issues. But there are all sorts of things you can report on in the app. It's got a man down function which allows you to set up a period of non-movement, and it's best to explain that by giving you two examples. If you're out jogging, for example, you can set the man down, and if you stop jogging for a period of time, let's say you've fallen over, and if you set it for 5 minutes, if you're inactive for 5 minutes, then again it will automatically send the alert along with the video and audio evidence. But it can also detect when there's an impact, and a lot of young people use this for bike riding or horse riding. If they fall, the phone impact will be detected by HollyGuard, and again, it will automatically send the alerts. You can upgrade for a small fee, monthly or annually, to HollyGuard Extra. And what that means is that any of the alerts that you send will go to a 24/7 monitoring center who can actually then call the police. So that might be for people who are more vulnerable, might be for those victims of crime, or just people who want their alert to go to someone 24/7 that can answer it. So HollyGuard has a whole raft of different functionality. And we're finding that it really is the go-to app. We work with, I think, we've got partnerships with 9 police forces now, and there are a number of others that use HollyGuard. So yeah, it's increasing its popularity, nearly 500,000 downloads now. So we know it saves lives, and I'm really proud of us for managing HollyGuard and the lives that it saves.
Yeah, and when you talked earlier about remaining strong and being level-headed and having that support network around you, but you got your head around, I want to make something positive come out of this. Just the app alone, I personally know that it has had a major effect on several individuals' lives in regards to their own safety, but also the bit you touched on in regarding the CPS and so on. Even though they didn't download the details, the data to the HollyGuard app, it made them mindful that when something occurs, they need to be recording data, evidence and it needs to, and then they start thinking about, well, if I do this, then somebody will believe me. It's not just coming from your voice, it's actual evidence. You become, regardless of what happens, it's not just your word against that other person.
Yeah.
And that in itself it's almost like walking around with, well, it is a guardian, so to speak.
We call it our guard. Well, we call it Holly, your guardian angel. So so one of the things that we did set up recently is that you can gift HollyGuard Extra, the monitored version, through Amazon now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people saying, well, I wish I could buy that for my niece who's at university, or my nephew who lives in a part of town where it's unsavory. Wish I could do that. So we put HollyGuard on Amazon so that people can gift it, and it's starting to take effect. We've got more and more purchases of HollyGuard Extra as the day goes on. So that's great, because we know that that's another option for people to be able to gift that safety, a gift of safety to someone that they love.
Yeah, perfect. And it's mind blowing, and in regards to the I've personally seen the impact of it. So that's really been good. So in regards to that's all wrapped around the foundation itself, and it's one of the outputs in regards to the information you give and the talks you give in schools. How do the general public, or just people, also like financially support you? How do they make donations? How do we keep you sustainable and keep this going?
Yes, like any charity, we need funds to keep going, and the more you are at success of your own a success, if you want to put it that way, the more money you need. So yes, we have to raise most of the money ourselves. We do that through people's generosity. They can hit the donate button on the website and donate as a one-off. They can donate a monthly amount, which we have a number of people that do that, which is great. We obviously we hold our own fundraising events. We have 4 a year. We have our Memorial Walk for Holly, which is the 14th of May. We also have an annual fundraiser called Purple Holiday, which is the first Friday in July. And what we try to do there is to get people to dedicate a day to fundraising around the color purple, because we know that purple is the trust color, but it's also the color for domestic abuse. So it's twofold really when we ask that. One is to help us raise money, but it's also to raise awareness of domestic abuse. So that's the first Friday in July. We then have a golf day in September, and we have an annual dinner at the end of November. We try to get sponsorship for those events. That's getting more and more difficult. We have auctions and raffles and all the general things that you would do as a charity to try and raise funds. But yes, it is something that we need to keep going. We're only a small team, but we have a large impact across a wide area. So we need to keep going and raise that money to help the victims of domestic abuse and stalking, and prevent those victims as well, because that is key to what we do.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's amazing. And so we can support you to do doing that. That's great. And what I'm going to do is take some details. I can go into the website and take those details down so that they're in the show notes. What I wanted to also ask, we are going back just slightly. You mentioned that when you do give information out, you do talks within schools or in businesses and so on, and you talk about the telltale signs that maybe not for yourself, but a friend of you, somebody you care for, or somebody you work with. What sort of things have come up for you that have been consistent, that are things that we should keep our eyes or recognize in other people who might be victims of domestic abuse or stalking?
Yeah, I think it's a case of, we do a lot of documentaries to try and get those messages out there. The recent one we did was aired on Netflix in a series called My Lover, My Killer. We're at series 2, episode 3. And we do, well, those are really difficult to do because you have to dig deep. But we do those because we want to try and capture areas that we've never captured before. And a lot of people, young people in particular, stream nowadays rather than watch mainstream TV. So that's why we did it with Netflix. But we try and get pointers across in those documentaries around Holly, what happened to her, and how we didn't pick up on certain issues. So every time we do a talk, we try to give out that information. To me, a lot of it's around identifying behaviours, particularly behaviours which someone is inflicting on you. Someone is maybe telling you to do something, suggesting or asking in a very stern way, and it's really around those behaviours that can often be very subtle, but when they start to build and the pattern develops, that can often be the telltale signs that something is not quite right. So it's really around those low level behaviours which I think are really important, particularly in young people, where you've got an older person, maybe an older partner, using that power on that young person to get them to do things, and exerting that power. And that can start very subtly. We know love bombing and those types of things, and they gradually then build those behaviors to be more impactful, and more distressing and more demanding for the victim. So it is really about those behaviors. And on our website, we've got a number of documents you can download, which will give you an indication of some of those behaviors, because I think it's important that individuals understand if someone is using that power with these behaviors, that can be a problem.
Thank you for everything you've kind of shared today. What I'd like to do on a parting note is to find out, like, with all this is a lot of work for you to do and for your family to do. How are you all doing now? What's life like, or what's your tomorrow's like, should I say?
Yeah, it comes with a cost. What you do, I had a 30-odd year financial services career, but I just decided that I just pushed that aside. My calling, if you want to put it that way, was to create the trust and to deliver what the trust has. Unfortunately, I suffered a stroke 3 years ago, which left me not able to walk, talk, or move in hospital. I think I've come through it quite well. Still got some residual issues, but I'm determined and focused to carry on delivering what we deliver, because the more people that we can save, the more people that we can prevent going through what Holly went through, then that gives me that warm heart. And as long as I can draw breath, then I will carry on delivering the trust and what it stands for. I'm down. I do work I'm supposed to work part-time. It doesn't always work that way because it's a labor of love, and I need to look after my health. But I will always try and deliver to help other people. That's just me as a person. Yeah, I go to a spa once a day. I join the local spa purely so that I stop work for a period of time, and I get that relaxation. I live with my daughter at the moment, so she always keeps an eye on me and tells me when I'm doing too much. In fact, the staff in the office are brilliant as well. They keep on to me. If I do too much, they will tell me, and I got to pull back. So they keep an eye on me as well.
So great. So there's a support network that only protects you but also loves you as well. That's
Absolutely,
yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me today?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm always grateful for a platform to talk on and talk about Holly, talk about what we deliver as a trust, because I firmly believe, particularly Hollyguard, is something that everyone should have, because even if you don't use it, it's there in the background, it's there on your phone, and it could actually just make you feel safer, even if you don't use it. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you, bless you, and all the best to you and your family. And thank you very much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
So take a deep breath and let this sink in. When events like this happen, we all have a part to play in supporting those who have a lived experience of domestic abuse, stalking and coercive control. Let's be there for the victims. Let's believe and not judge or blame them, and support the victims to report until they're heard. There is more information in the show notes. So dive in, and if you have any questions, get in touch. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are important. Thank you for listening to this episode. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe, like, or leave a comment.